Hey, what's up, people? Back here for another couple of fight card predictions. We have two fight cards upcoming this Saturday as the UFC heads to New Zealand for the first time, and later on Saturday night, early Sunday morning, we have UFC Fight Night from San Antonio. The first card from New Zealand, a lot of fighters you've never probably seen before if you don't watch MMA outside of the UFC. I know a few of the names that are on there. It'll be interesting to see. I think the main card for this for New Zealand looks pretty decent, but there's a lot of fights on there which really hard to pick, considering you can't really find that much on these guys on the internet at all. I've seen a few fights from some of the fighters, but nothing much, I'm afraid. I'm going to go quickly into the New Zealand picks, and we're going to move on to San Antonio. So we're going to start in the light heavyweight division. We've got Gian Villante against Sean O'Connell. Gian Villante's coming back after getting mauled in Brazil against Fabio Maldonado, and Sean O'Connell's coming in for his second UFC fight after getting knocked out by Ryan Jimmo. Both guys hit hard. Both guys will probably gas after a round. I think Gian Villante can win this fight. He's a better wrestler in this fight, but I think he can win this fight on the feet as well if he goes after it fairly early. If it goes into the second round, then he's goosed because his gas tank isn't great. On O'Connell's it isn't that great either. So I'm going to go Gian Villante with I'm going to go first round TKO. Next up we've got Dan Hooker against Ian Entwistle. Dan Hooker, the only reason he's on this card, he's got a 10-4 record, but he comes from New Zealand and they had to throw somebody on there from the home country. This is a fight that Ian Entwistle can win very easily. He's 8-1. I've seen him fight 2 or 3 times in Cage Warriors. Fights out of Thailand, a very, very good submission fighter. Likes to win his fights down there. I fully expect him to do that here. So I'm going to go Ian Entwistle by submission in the second. Welterweight clash between Neil Magny and Rodrigo Guana de Lima. De Lima, I think he was the Jungle Fights champion, if I remember right. Welterweight champion, coming into the UFC for his first fight. He loves to go to the ground as well. But I think Neil Magny has looked really impressive in his last few fights. He lost his first 2 fights. He won a fight, then lost his next 2. But he's looked very, very decent in his last 2 fights. I think it was Tim Means was his last win. Looked very impressive in that fight. And I fully expect him to win this fight as well. I think he will win it by decision, so I'm going to go Neil Magny. Next up is a fight from the Ultimate Fighter Canada v Australia series. 2 fighters that were on there. Chris Indich against Vic Gruich. Don't particularly care much for this fight. 2 guys that I really don't think should be in the UFC. Vic Gruich, his second fight, his first fight in the UFC against Talib, he got a bad cut and got kind of beat up pretty viciously by Talib. I'm going to go Gruich by decision. Next up in the flyweight division, we've got Richie Vaculik against Roldan Sanchaan. Sanchaan, he fights out the Philippines, Team Lakay, 4-0. What I've seen, he's very, very good, but he's very, very reckless, and he comes forward and he's going to get taken down fairly easy by half decent wrestlers, and I think Vaculik, most of his wins are by submission. I fully expect him to take it to the ground and maybe win a late submission, possibly late second, early third round. So I'm going to go Richie Vaculik by submission in the second. Next up we've got Jake Matthews against Deshaun Johnson. Deshaun Johnson's a boxer, professional boxer beforehand. He's come into UFC. He's 9-0, 6 of his wins by KO, 3 by submission. Jake Matthews was also in the Ultimate Fighter Australia v Canada card season. He didn't do too great in there. He's a very young fighter. He's a fighter that probably shouldn't be in the UFC. I don't think he's only 5-0. Get him some more fights out there and bring him back in. Tough fight this. I think it's a very 50-50 fight this. But I think I may just lean towards Jake Matthews via decision, but it's going to be close. Next up is the fight I'm really looking forward to on this card. It's Robert Whittaker against Mike Biggie Rhodes. Robert Whittaker is the former Smashes winner. He's coming off a couple of losses, I believe. I know Stephen Thompson was the last one. Very, very good striker. Really likes to stand. He's coming off his last 2 losses. That's to Stephen Thompson and a split decision to Court McGee. stand-up fighter, loves to stand and bang. He's got some really good power on his right hook. Sometimes he throws his left up really weirdly and likes to kind of pop the jab and try and move quite a bit. Can go to the ground. He's not great on the ground, but he is prone to getting hit. Well, I watched the fight with him and Colton Smith, and he won that fight via TKO, but he didn't look impressive in doing so. Colton Smith is not a good fighter in my eyes. He's one of the worst in the UFC, and he got hit with some straight shots. Now against a bigger puncher, I think he will get taken out, and I think this is where it may come in against Mike Rhodes. Now Mike Rhodes is 6-2. I'm a big fan of his. He got his UFC debut back early in the year. He came in like a week to 2 weeks notice. If he had even another couple of weeks, I think he would have schooled George Sullivan. He gassed fairly early in the fight, and George Sullivan used his experience, took it to the ground, and tried to. He just rode out a decision. So I'm going to be going with Mike Rhodes. I just think his kickboxing's a little bit better. I think his boxing's going to be a little bit better than Robert Whittaker, and he's going to catch him with a shot. I don't think he'll finish Whittaker because Whittaker's a really tough guy. The Stephen Thompson, when he stopped him, it was a big kick, I think, that kind of started it all. I don't think Mike Rhodes will do that, but I do think he will win the fight, and I'm going to go Mike Rhodes via a split decision. Next up we have excuse me, in the featherweight division, another kind of interesting fight. Hatsu Hioki against Charles Oliveira. I can't believe Charles Oliveira is actually the favourite in this fight. I was just looking at that there on the betting odds, and I like Hatsu Hioki in this fight. Hioki is coming off a win over Ivan Menjivar. Before that, he lost to Darren Elkins, Clay Guida, and Ricardo Lamas. So he's lost to really good fighters in his own decisions as well. Great guy when he goes to the ground. He's very, very adventurous with submissions, and he will try things which is really great to see. But Charles Oliveira is kind of chinny. We saw that against Cub Swanson. He got hit with a good shot, it went down. It kind of delayed reaction. He fought Frankie Edgar in a weird fight, weird matchmaking, if you ask me. I think he only lost via decision in that one. He got away with that one. So I don't think Charles Oliveira's a good fighter. I think he beat Andy Ogle last time out, and Andy Ogle I don't think is a very good fighter either. I'm going to go Hatsu Hioki via unanimous decision, and he could stop Charles Oliveira here, but I'm going to go via decision. Next up, two heavyweights. I don't think this fight's going to last very long. We all know what Soa Palelei wants to do. He wants to charge forward. He wants to take you to the ground. And once you've got your back on the ground, you're fucked, basically. You're not going to go far because he's got these huge ground and pound shots that just, with one, like we've seen with Pat Barry, knock you clean out and you're out for a few minutes. So we all know what Jared Rosholt needs to do. He needs to stop the takedown, basically, and probably swing on his feet. We've seen against Krylov, Palelei kind of struggle. I think he injured himself in that fight, to be fair. But that's what Jared Rosholt needs to do. He needs to keep it in the feet. The longer he keeps it in the feet, I think he will win. And I think I may. I was actually surprised at this one as well. Jared Rosholt is actually the favourite. I thought Soa Palelei would be the favourite, but I think I'm going to go with. I think I'm going to go Soa Palelei. I think this is a 50-50 fight for me, but I'm going to go with Soa Palelei via TKO in the second. The main event is James Te-Huna against Nate Marquardt in the middleweight division. Te-Huna's coming down from light heavyweight against Nate Marquardt, who's coming back up from welterweight. Nate Marquardt, former Strikeforce champion in the welterweight division, fought in the UFC middleweight division for many years before he won the Strikeforce title. A very, very good kickboxer. James Te-Huna is just very, very good everywhere, but he got folded up by Shogun last time out. Main event, I think it's a pretty crappy main event if you ask me, but I'm going to go James Te-Huna by knockout in the second round. So that is that card done for UFC New Zealand from Auckland, and we're moving on to UFC San Antonio, where Cub Swanson and Jeremy Stephens are the main event in this card. I actually quite like the look of this card. There's some really good fights. So we're going to start at the bottom. We've got Alexei Olenek against Anthony Hamilton. Olenek, I think he fought in Bellator back in the day. He fought Chael Sonnen away back in the day. I think his record's like 48, 9-1. So he's been fighting for a long time. He's finally got his shot in the UFC against Anthony Hamilton, who fights out of the Jackson Winklejohn gym in New Mexico. Olenek, he's a combat sambo fighter. He's a former world champion. You know what he's going to be good at. He's going to be good at grappling. He's going to take a hold. He's going to take you to the ground. He's just going to keep you there, pound on you, and get a decision. But I think he will stop Anthony Hamilton here, and I think he'll do it in the second round via ground and pound. Moving on to the flyweight division, another fighter I'm really looking forward to seeing. We've got Ray Borg, also fighting out team Jackson Winklejohn against Shane Howell. This is a short notice fight for Howell. He's going to get taken out in this fight, I can guarantee it. 13-7 is Howell. Prone to submissions, where Ray Borg is really, really good at cementing people. And I think he's 6-1. 5 of his 6 wins are by submission. And that one that he lost against Dustin Ortiz, I'm a Dustin Ortiz fan, but I gave it just for Ray Borg. I thought it was a bit of a shitty decision, but Ortiz got the victory nonetheless. I'm going to go Ray Borg by submission. I think he can catch him in the first round. In the middleweight division, we've got Marcelo Guimarães against Andy Entz. Marcelo Guimarães, he got knocked out by Hung Gu Lim last time in his fight. I think it was about a year ago. It was a long, long time ago that he fought. Andy Entz lost his UFC debut against Clint Hester. He's a Gracie guy. He loves to get to the ground, use his jiu-jitsu. I think 6 of his 7 wins have came by submission, so I fully expect him to do that. I thought he looked fairly good against Clint Hester. Clint Hester's been kind of streaking in the middleweight division. He's looked fairly impressive doing so. So I'm going to go Andy Entz by, I might go submission, 3rd round in that one as well. Next up, we've got Johnny Bedford against Cody Gibson. I thought Cody Gibson looked very, very good in his UFC debut against Aljamain Sterling. On another night, I actually think Aljamain Sterling's a lot better fight than Cody Gibson. He was kind of off that night, but take nothing away from Cody Gibson for making a very exciting fight. Johnny Bedford, he lost to, I think it was a no contest last time against Rani Yahya, maybe in Abu Dhabi. I could be wrong there, just popping to my head there. This is going to be a close fight. I reckon that Cody Gibson has got more hunger than Johnny Bedford. I like watching Johnny Bedford fight. He's very aggressive when he comes forward, he attacks everything. But I like Cody Gibson in this fight. He's coming in short notice, about a month out. I think he's better on his feet. He moves a lot better than Johnny Bedford, but his base isn't as good as what Johnny Bedford is. He's very hard to take down as Bedford. But I'm going to go with Cody Gibson in this fight. I think he will just get enough to get a decision. Next up, we've got Colton Smith against Carlos Diego Ferreira, who's a Jiu-Jitsu world champion. As I said earlier on, I think Colton Smith is the worst fighter in the UFC. Shouldn't be there. After this fight, he won't be there. I'm going to go Ferreira by submission, and I'm going to say in the second round. Colton Smith's been prone to being subbed in the past. Michael Chiesa caught him. So I'm going to go Ferreira by submission in the second. Quite a lot of submissions in this card that I'm seeing. Next up, we've got Joe Ellenberger against James Mustasri. Ellenberger, he's went through like 5 different opponents and hasn't even fought in the UFC yet. Pretty effed up if you ask me, the amount of people that have kind of pulled out, or he's been pulled out of fights. But it's finally good to see that he will get a fight, hopefully, this weekend, considering we're like 5 or 6 days out. Mustasri fights at the Black House Gym, 7-1, so you know he's going to be fairly decent on his feet. He'll probably be very good in all aspects of the game, fighting there with some of the great fighters they have in that camp. But I think Joe Ellenberger's wrestling is going to be the main thing in this, considering James fought only a few weeks ago. I think it was June 16th or June 6th, sorry, he last fought RFA. Go watch RFA if you ever get the chance. Some fighters coming into the UFC now that you'll see quite a lot of. I think he beat Jordan Rinaldi last time out, but I just think Joe Ellenberger's wrestling is going to be too much. He's going to take him there and he's going to get a unanimous decision victory. Next up, we're in the middleweight division with Clint Hester against Antonio Braga Neto. A little bit surprised when I looked at the odds of this that Neto was actually the favourite. He's another Jiu-Jitsu world champion. Very, very good on the ground. Very dangerous on the ground. Obviously wants to try and get it there. I think he's only fought once in the UFC against Anthony Smith, well over a year ago now. So we haven't seen much. He's been injured since then. Clint Hester's won 3 fights in the last year. Dylan Andrews was one of them. Andy Enns, as I said before, was another one. Bristol Morundi, he caught him with that elbow. Powerful, strong. I think if Clint Hester stops the takedown here, he wins this fight all night long, and I'll be putting some money in Clint Hester because I think that's having Neto as the favourite. I don't think that's right. So I'm going to go Clint Hester by unanimous decision. Moving on to the featherweight division, another good fight. Ricardo Lamas against Hakran Diaz. Diaz, we haven't seen him in a year either. He was supposed to face Chad Mendes a little while back, get injured, and then he was supposed to come back. He did win a fight. Who was it against? I cannot remember. Let me see. Nick Lentz. That's what it was, and that was well over a year ago as well. So, be interesting to see him in the UFC again. Ricardo Lamas, we haven't seen him since he lost to Jose Aldo. Jose Aldo was just another level above Ricardo Lamas, and there's nothing wrong with that because Aldo is a great fighter. Very aggressive. I can see him stopping Hakran Diaz here by knockout in the second. Middleweight division, we've got Mutante Ferreira against Andrew Craig. I thought the odds would be a little bit closer in this as well. I don't think Ferreira's as good a fighter as people kind of make out. I think he's good. He's got a lot of work to do, but we saw against CB Dollaway, he's chinny. He can get hit with a shot and go out. He got too aggressive in that fight against Dollaway and got knocked out. Andrew Craig, I think he's coming off a couple of losses, so that he'll be looking to go big in this fight. And I'm actually going to go with Andrew Craig in this fight. I think the longer the fight goes, it's more in his favour. So I'm going to go Andrew Craig by unanimous decision. Co-main event is Kelvin Gastelum against Nicholas Masuke. Masuke, I think, is a huge underdog in this fight. I don't think he should be. I think this fight's a lot closer than what people think. Masuke is 2-0 in the UFC. Beat Alessio Sakara in Manchester last year. Beat Viscardo Andrade in Brazil. I think it was earlier on this year, the Machida Musashi card. He came down from the middleweight division to the welterweight division. He's a big guy. I've seen him in Manchester. He's fucking huge. So it'd be interesting to see him against a really top class guy in Kelvin Gastelum. I do think he's a top 15 welterweight, just kind of on the cusp of the top 15. Great win over Rick Story last time. He got hurt in that fight, and he still managed to come forward and get the win. I think this fight's a lot closer than what people think. I don't think a lot of people are giving it a shoe-in for Kelvin Gastelum. I don't see it that way. I think Masuke is a very, very dangerous fighter. But in that first fight against Sakara was trying to submit him and he hurt him. I've got a funny feeling that Kelvin Gastelum's going to catch him in a submission late in the fight in the third round. So I'm going to go Kelvin Gastelum via submission in the third round. And the main event of the night is a featherweight clash between Cub Swanson and Jeremy Stephens, and this looks very, very exciting. Both guys that like to come out and bang. Cub Swanson's a very, very good fighter on his feet. Very, very good footwork. You look at his boxing. He's a very good boxer. I think he trains with Andre Ward and Virgil Hill. I think he trains him a little bit. Fighting out the Winklejohn team again in New Mexico. Jeremy Stephens, very, very aggressive fighter. We've seen him with some absolutely unbelievable knockouts, been knocked out himself. Very good wrestling. He doesn't use it as much as he really should, I don't think, because of the aggressiveness on his feet. But Cub Swanson's been on a roll the last couple of years in the UFC. He's looking for that title shot. I believe if he gets this, he's next in line for Mendes and Aldo at the end of August. He beat Silva, he beat Poirier in a great fight. Charles Oliveira, Ross Pearson, George Roop. He deserves this title shot if he beats Jeremy Stephens, I believe. And I think he will, but I don't think it'll be that close. I think it'll be all Cub Swanson, unanimous decision, 50-45s across the board. So I'm going to go Cub Swanson by unanimous decision. So that's my fight picks for this weekend's fights from New Zealand and San Antonio. I will be back a week from now, next Monday, for UFC 175, the biggest card of the year so far, where Chris Weidman will be facing Lyoto Machida and Ronda Rousey will be defending her title against Alexis Davis. We also have Uriah Faber on the card as well. So I'll be back next week. Keep an eye out for that video. Come follow me on Twitter, BigBubba7MMA. Share this video and see you again.